So I'm Maya. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Phil. I'm a junior.
I'm Edan, and I'm a senior.
I'm Carl, and I'm a junior.
I'm Aaron. I'm a sophomore.
For me, I am doing first experience in research, so I kind of happened upon working with Jeremy.
Yeah, I also started with the first experiences in research. It's like a program the university runs to get first and second year students working in research.
So for me, I had done research previously with another professor in the condensed matter department. I had Jeremy as a professor, and just kind of on a whim, I asked him, do you know anyone cool in Israel? Because I kind of want to spend a summer there. And he mentions a couple of names. And then 2 weeks later, at the end of the semester, he says, oh, if you were serious about wanting to go to Israel, I can set up this collaboration, and then you'll work with me for the spring, and then you'll go to Israel for the summer. And then I did that. And so now I came back and I still work with Jeremy. So that was a pretty great experience.
So my story is wild. I actually started as one of the lab organizers rather than like a researcher, and I had not done research before. And on a whim, I just kind of decided I should email Jeremy and see if I could, start doing research, because like I'm a physics math double major. I want to do research. So I sent him an email, and we sat down actually in here one day a year ago in the fall. And he asked me a little bit about my classes, a little bit about what I was doing, if I'd ever researched, why I chose him. And he was just kind of like, yeah, sure. Welcome to the group.
I'm working on trying to make single electron transistors. So using the nanowire procedure, how to make like little dots, essentially, in a really controlled manner. So lots of my time is spent on that. I'm the super user of one of the AFMs, so I get to oversee the operations, train people like Aaron and Maya, and some grad students and stuff, and just fix things when they go wrong, which is pretty fun. So yeah, I get to use AFMs, cool things down in the fridges and whatnot, and do a lot of software development, I think. It's a pretty fun time.
We had the cryostat that quenched, and we were looking for other ways to do my experiment, which is related to the actual temperature dependence of the nanowires we create. And we need some way to actually chill the sample, and we think that because we were using the cryostat to cool the sample without purging the chamber, so it was still able to access the air, we think that might have contributed something to what damaged the cryostat, but we have no idea, just theories. So we decided to look into a different way to do this experiment, and we came across the beer cooler. And Jeremy sent me a message one day, and it was like, hey, I bought you a beer cooler. Let's see if it works.
So my project in the lab, as part of the collaboration, was to try and measure very locally dissipation in our nanowire systems. So the group that we collaborated with, they have a technique that has a probe where you can measure heat differences of microkelvins on nanometer scales. So we wanted to take this system and measure our nanowires to see where is the electron giving up energy to a lattice, if anywhere.
I've been building the computers, and I basically do a lot of the IT stuff, but then also I've been working on rebuilding the Joule, and then...
What is the Joule?
It's an AFM. It's a AFM that gets really cold and can be an AFM at the same time, which none of our other AFMs can do. And we want to get something really cold and poke on the ferromagnetic domain walls and see what happens. And then for my other project, we're trying to drill a hole in LaOSTO because there's a 2D electron gas trapped in between the two crystals. So every other thing we make interacts with that at a distance, but we're going to try to interact with that directly. And we're using the Cypher for that, but now we're just basically going to shoot it with ions and blow holes in it and put stuff in there because we don't have time to get the other stuff to work because we've been working on that for a year and it hasn't made any progress. That's
And using the ion mill
instead of the PPA because PPA hasn't made any progress and I can't work in the clean room to do it. So
Cool. Yeah. I'm kind of just helping y'all out, learning the ways of the lab, which is very interesting.
tools. Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, what grade you're in, what you do in the lab, we're kind of mid-discussion.
Okay, hey guys, I'm Joe. I'm a senior undergraduate researcher. Wait, what I do in the lab?
Yeah.
A lot. No, I generally I'm working on the Joel AFM system. So basically the goal is to have a low temperature AFM. So we're converting a vacuum AFM into a low temperature being less than 10 Kelvin atomic force microscope. I also work with cryogenic force microscopy experiments. So that's basically pushing down on the sample and seeing how it changes the transport through a device.
Cool. So. While you're still talking, how did you kind of come across the lab? How did you get this experience?
First experiences in research.
How is working in this lab going to help you guys in the future?
When I started as a freshman, I knew next to nothing. And now I know slightly more than nothing. And it was kind of a really rewarding experience because every class in physics that you take, you learn a little bit more and you can apply it in the context of a lab. And so, even now I don't understand much of what's going on between when graduate students are talking about the physics, but every few weeks it's a little bit more, and then finally now I can engage in a discussion in a meaningful way after 4 years of physics classes.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of things that are not necessarily physics, but they're other useful skills, like design principles, a lot of programming and program architecture skills, and then task management too, along with a lot of physics. But I think everyone else has already kind of covered. Basically, the general gist is that kind of floating to the surface. You're always above your head, but
yeah. Just to expand on something you touched on, there is a real wealth of knowledge that you get that's completely outside of the technical. That is what is it like to be a physics person? And you have this concept of when I was in high school, it's okay, they just play with a chalkboard all day or something. I didn't really know what it was to be a physicist, and then you learn that really quickly just from being around physicists.
It was well, I want to go into physics, so I can learn all the stuff that there is for a PhD, but then what? How do you keep learning? And that's research. So it's I want to keep learning, and I want to keep researching because research is the way to learn.